Hi, welcome to another in my series of videos using the GoPress and foil. Today I want to look at using foiling as a resist on a kind of messy watercolour background. This card was literally dripping wet earlier today. So it's foiled. Then I've used Spectrum Sparkle pens as my source of colour, but you could use any kind of aqua marker, paints that you can mix in with water, anything like that you could mix on into a spritzed water background to do something like that. I've foiled it on Crafter's Companion Sheena Stamping card because that puts up with the water effects very well without distorting or peeling or anything happening. And as you can see, that the foiling has stayed absolutely crisp as ever, undisturbed by all that water. So let me tilt the camera down and show you how I'm going to set up for that. Okay, so now you can see what I've got on my craft mat. So let's move that out of the way. So I'm going to be using, to do my foiling, this homemade template that's made from cutting a die out 3 or 4 times, sticking all the layers together. So that's what I'm going to be using as my hot foil stamp. I'm also going to be using some wooden shapes, thin wooden embellishments. I'm going to be using those as hot foil stamps. There's a separate video on using those. And some nice leaves. The leaves I actually bought in Hobbycraft earlier in the week, so we'll see how it goes. So first things first, I need to figure out how I'm going to lay out all the elements I want to foil. I'm going to do it in stages, and I'm going to do the rose first. So if I just think about where I'm going to want that on my card, well, first of all, I'm using an A5 piece of card. European sizes are things like A4, A5, A6, and they're different to American sizes. I know that. So this piece of card is 21 centimetres along the long edges and 14.9 millimetres on the shorter edges. So that's half of a big sheet. So that's the size I'm using, and I may well cut it and trim it and split it into bits to make up a card later. So that's how I'm going to start. So first of all, figure out where you're going to do the rose first. So if I assume I'm putting that down in that corner, I then want to figure out where my other elements are going to maybe fit in. So maybe I'm going to have that there and a leaf there, and I might do more than one leaf depending on how the layout comes together. But then I want to make sure I've got room for the rose in the opposite corner. So I'm going to leave those in place and just move my rose around. Now I've just turned it. I could flip it, but I've just turned it, and yes, that's going to fit in that corner. And if I did flip it, would it still fit? Yes, it would. So that will be fine. Okay, so my rose is going to go down there. Okay, a bit in from the edges, about the same on either side. Okay, let's move those out of the way. So that's where I want my rose. I'm using this gold foil I've got here. So I usually put a piece of low tack tape just over the edge of my foil so it doesn't come unrolled, especially with these big rolls. So, but this foil isn't wide enough for all of that, so I'm going to need to do 2 pieces and join it together. So that's cut a length. And if you're joining foil, you want to keep both pieces the same way round, because it actually kind of has a grain. And if you don't want to see the join, keep them the same way around. So let's do that. And then sometimes I find where they've been on the roll and that's the edge of the roll has been rubbed, you don't get good foiling right at the edge. So I'm going to trim where the join's going to be off on this piece of foil, just a little bit off the edge. Doesn't have to be completely straight. Might even be better if it's not. So that's the side that's going to go down onto the card. So I'm going to put it over there like that. Actually, I want it the other way up so I can join my two bits together. You can have quite a big overlap. It won't matter. Important thing is you end up with a piece big enough for your template you're going to foil. That will not be that way up. I want to use the nice side of it. There's some extra details on there that it might just pick out. Right, so I'm going to use some low tack tape and stick my foil together. So make sure this is flat on your card. Okay, and I suggest you stick it to one piece of foil and then spread over onto the next. You end up being nice and flat. And just smooth it. And because I'm coming away from there, I'm going to stick there first and then smooth it along. Okay, so that's my foil. And then I won't want all of that because I'm going to get lots of overfoiling if I'm not careful. It won't matter that my hot pour stamp is sitting over the tape. That will put its pressure through just the same. And I use my small scissors just to trim off some of this excess. So let's see, I'm going to come around here. Let me move my card out of the way. You want to do this quite carefully because you don't want to scratch the foil in the areas that you aren't going to be using. There. Go across that corner there. And it won't matter if the edges are scruffy. Now before I put my foil down on this glass mat, I've made sure it's absolutely clean and there's nothing on there that's going to scratch the foil or damage it in any way. So I'm going to go around there. I'm going to pick it up for a moment. Make sure I cut through both layers here. My advice if you're starting out is start with something small. Work your way up to big things, but you need to see how it's done sometime. So I need to come in across that piece of tape and cut a chunk out there. Go. Right, so now I can put that onto my card. Get the foil and the template in the right place. I'm going to lick my finger slightly so it grips on the foil so I can drag that foil near to my edge and move that to where I want it, about there. Okay, too much foil on this bottom edge here, so I'm just going to trim that. That's better. Okay, and having taken all that care over sorting out where it's going to be positioned, I am going to put a piece of tape to hold the two in place in just a couple of places. Now, I want to be a bit careful where I'm putting my tape because I don't want to put it in areas I'm going to want to foil later. So I'm going to put one on that back corner there. And I'm going to put another piece just over this edge there. So I'm just catching my die cut, going over the edge of the foil and onto my card. I use Frog Decorator's masking tape for delicate surfaces. It's not one of the cheapest masking tapes, but I do find it works very well. It doesn't suffer too much when it gets hot in the GoPress, and it peels off my card nicely, which is what you need it to do. So I'm going to put that to one side a minute while I talk about how I've got my GoPress set up. Okay, so this has been warming up. That's it. So on here I have a thin metal shim. It's only 0.3mm thick. I've done more detailed videos on working with hot foil stamps made from die cuts where I've explained about that. So do have a look at those. It is kind of my all-round get out for using things that aren't the right thickness or that need to be supported from underneath when you're foiling rather than pressing the foil down onto them. So onto there I'm going to put my piece of card with my hot foil stamp. Now I'm quite lucky, I've got an A4 die cutting machine, so I can put that in the middle and let it stick out the side of my GoPress. And that will be fine. I do want a card shim on top of that though. So I've got a double thickness card shim just to go on there. Put that on there, and I'm going to leave that for a short time to come up to temperature. Now, using this method, it's not the hot foil stamp that comes up to temperature, it is just my card that I'm foiling onto and the foil. So I don't want to leave that for too long before I go and roll it through my die cutting machine. I'm going to pause the video while I do that. Okay, so that's back from the die cutting machine. Moment of truth. There's my shim. There's my card. Put this back on the base plate to stay warm for the next bit. And let's see if it worked. So I like to peel my tape starting at my hot foil stamp. Get an end up and peel away from the foil. Here. There, so I can see already that I've got quite a good impression. So let's peel the foil and see what we've got. Some people like to kind of burnish it down. I don't really know if it makes any difference at all. Under here. There we go, and those areas that were underneath the masking tape because it was the join in the foil, that's made no difference at all. Okay, so now I need to repeat that on the other side. Okay, so I'll do that and show you when we get that far. Okay, so just before this goes back on the GoPress, I just want to show you that I've joined two pieces of foil together again. You can see the join under here, and then I positioned that on my card, just taped it in a couple of places. The tape is only just touching the card on a very small edge, particularly on this one. It doesn't need to, It just needs to hold it in place while I'm putting it onto the GoPress. It doesn't need to stand up to the rolling motion. The lid of the GoPress holds everything still while that happens. So I'll put that on the GoPress, run it through and show you how it comes out. Okay, so I'm just back from my die cutting machine. As you can see, I did it with my cardstock sticking out from the edges of the GoPress. You do have to be a bit careful as you're pulling it in and out of your base unit and using it on your die cutting machine, that you don't actually move the card by sort of pulling on here. So you just need to be a bit careful how you handle the base unit. So let's see what we've got. My shim. There's my project. Put the platform back on the base unit. Okay, carefully peel the tape that's holding the hot foil stamp to the foil and the card. Peel that first. There we are. That's not been damaged by the process, or not as far as I can see. It's quite a sturdy set of die cuts. It's got a bit of paper stuck on there. It's got quite thick lines, this one, so it should stand up to a reasonable amount of use. Once we've finer lines, you find that they start kind of collapsing on themselves. So let's peel the foil and see what we've got. And there we have our other corner. Okay, so in the middle, I don't want to leave that blank. I want to fill that in. And I think I'm actually going to use a combination of gold and red foiling across the middle. So let's decide what I want. So I've got these nice wooden swirly shapes. So maybe I could put that down in a corner. And then I say I've got these leaves, so perhaps put some leaf or two in the middle. Maybe doing that. Yeah, and I can overlap, so if I want to put some red leaves over the top of my rose, I can. I'm probably not going to today, but you can do foil over foil. Yeah, that's a whole another experiment. Except I did on this. Yeah, I've foiled the silver, and then I foiled the purple, and then I thought, well, I want to try out my messy watercolour, so I actually used that to try that out. So if I'm going to put those there, and I'm going to need my bits of foil for that, so bear with me a moment. Okay, so I have here my roll of red foil. If you peel that the other way, there we are. So that's its bit of tape. Let me just have a bit of a tidy here. Get some of these offcuts of foil out of the way. If they're big offcuts, I'll use them. But if they're small ones, they just they stick to your tape, and that can be a bigger problem than them not sticking to your tape. So I'm not going to need a huge piece of foil, so just cut some off the length here. Okay, and then I need to see roughly what size. So I think I'll do my spools in red. So I'm obviously going to get done it that way. Go across, it doesn't make much difference. Cut my foil roughly to size. roughly the right size. And then I can put my swirl onto the card where I want it. This really isn't as much lining things up as just positioning them and getting them where you want. Okay, so that. Yeah, I'll have that one there. Now these are thicker than my layered die cuts, so I need to take some shims out of my mix on my GoPress, so bear with me. So on here currently I've got my thin metal shim. It's a very thin metal shim. It's not the GoPress adapter plate, it's a 0.3mm metal shim. And underneath that I've got a sheet of white card currently, so I'm going to take that out because I don't need that extra thickness underneath the plate. Okay, one of the things you can do if you're not sure about your die cutting machine and what you're foiling with is try it out with it all cold and work very slowly. Yeah, and if it feels like it's going to be too tight for the die cutting machine, you haven't wasted foil and everything else. You can just, you know, build your stack with what you want to foil with and your machine and see if it's going to be happy going through. So just a metal plate. I'm going to close the lid for a moment while I take my wooden embellishment down to my foil so it doesn't move. And again, I'm just taping it so that I can move it in and out of the GoPress without things sliding around. That's really frustrating if that happens. Let's just angle it differently. There. Actually, that will probably do, just to put it in and keep it still while it's there. It's only a small item. Okay, so that's going to go onto the GoPress. And again, it's only my foil and the card that needs to heat. I'm not going to put any shims in at all because that's quite a thick object. Okay, I'll show in a few moments how that's come out. Okay, so that's been through the die cutting machine. I've only rolled once, so but let me see, the metal shape has just a little bit adhered itself to the lid, so I might just cover that with a thin piece of paper next time. Let's move that out of the way. And there we have the first one of those. Okay, I'm going to do the one in this area and then put some leaves in the middle. So, get the tape ready. You have to be quite careful with these. They're only thin pieces of wood. If you put any strain on them, they will break. Going to be the best fit like that. So again, I want it kind of roughly balanced, but it doesn't need to be an exact measurement. And you can use these either side, so I can either go, I think I will go that way up, I don't think I've turned that over from the other one. Again, piece of tape. Oh, I'm going to have a fresh piece, that's gone very tacky feeling. The heat does have some effect on this tape, so whilst it peels nicely, if you keep using it, it kind of gets tackier and tackier. So just going into that corner again, and I'll put a piece of paper over that this time and put that through the GoPress, through the die cutting machine. Okay, so back from the die cutting machine. Okay, so I actually found I'd got a piece of release paper. This is a sort of thing that double-sided tape is stuck to, and dress labels and that kind of thing. So if you can get hold of some of that, if you work in an office maybe, you might find that they use address labels, and the backing sheet from those might be something you can just have from the office. It would just go in the bin anyway. So that's gone through, so let's get it off the heat. Carefully peel my tape. Be very careful I don't bend that piece of wood. There we are. There we are. That's unscathed. Can be used again. And there's the foiling I've got from it. That's the result I'm really pleased with. Okay, so let's do something in the middle of this. So, I don't want my leaf. So, I thought I might overlap gold leaf over the top of some of that red. So, I've got my offcuts here. I don't know if they're big enough. Some of this will be. So, this is where I trimmed from earlier. So, I guess just cut it to size and get as many out of it as I can before I have to cut more off the roll. So yeah, I'm going to take that one there. Just make sure it's properly on the foil. Piece of tape to keep it still. And mostly on the wood, I'm just coming over the edge there, so just stay still while I'm putting it onto my GoPress. I think these are actually thicker. Yes, these are quite a lot thicker. And that's going to be interesting. I think that's going to be too thick to go for my GoPress as is. Okay, so one of the things you can do with your GoPress is, rather than close the lid, you can leave the lid open and use a thinner cutting plate on top instead. So let me explain. So the lid of the GoPress is 4mm thick. Okay, on a lot of machines that's the thickness of the A plate. That seems to be quite a standard thickness, but most machines as cutting plates come with B plates and they're only 3mm thick. So I'm going to leave that open and use a 3mm plate. I'm going to put that on there and put my release paper on top, and I'm going to let it warm up just as before. Let me put that in the right place. Put my release paper on top, and I'm going to close the lid while it all heats through. But while that's heating through, I'm going to go and find a 3mm cutting plate. Okay, so I've not been to the die cutting machine yet. Well, I've been and found my cutting plates. So I have here, forced up to it, a compatible B plate for a cuttle bug, I think it is. It's 3mm thick. So that's an option. I'm going to go and see how that feels thickness wise when I run that through the die cutting machine, and I'll come back and let you know how I've got on. Okay, so that was quite a tight fit for my die cutting machine, but seems to have worked. I've only rolled once, and you put it through handle first, and you stop before you get to the lid, and then you wind out again. Or if you've got an electronic machine, pause it in reverse. So take care if you're doing that. So I'm going to put that down there, and we'll see if that's worked. Now, if this foiling hasn't come out, I'm going to put something else over the top. I'm not sure that's done anything much at all, so I think I've probably not given that long enough to heat. So I'm going to put that back down, leave it on my hot plate for longer with the cutting plate, because that will have drawn the heat out of it because it's cold, and then see if that works. That's when you're glad you've got some tape to keep everything still. So I'll come back when I've done that again. Okay, I'm back from the die cutting machine. I've just closed the lid while I'm carrying the hot plate through. So take my cutting plate off, move that out of the way, move that to one side, put this back on the base plate. So I actually use a Todo die cutting machine. I find the GoPress easier for foiling than the Todo, but I still use the Todo as my die cutting machine. Although I can adjust the pressure, now that hasn't worked. That is because that's an offcut of that foil. This foil is quite fussy, it doesn't like being overheated. So I forgot I can't use it twice because it doesn't like being overheated. So I shall try that again with a fresh piece of foil from the roll, and I'll be back. Okay, back from the die cutting machine again. So there's my cutting plate. Again, I just closed the lid while I was carrying it. I think this is just going to lift straight off of here. Oh, no, I've still not got good foiling. So, okay. I'm going to put another swirl over there so that won't show. And by the time I've actually put my background on this, it'll either be some artistic highlights or it won't be seen at all. And then I shall just fill in the middle. Okay, so I shall do that in the red foil and show you the result. Okay, so back to the die cutting machine again. So let's see what that looks like. So I'm just going to carefully peel back my tape. That's it. I guess if you're bored of watching me stick things down and go to the die cutting machine, you can always fast forward. Now that's not come out well either. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to put that back over the top. And I can line it up because you can see where it started to foil. And stick it back down and go and put that back through again. I obviously haven't given that long enough to heat. Okay, so one last time, let's see if we've actually got this foil adhered to the card. Well, it looks better. I do that. You can see. Okay, that's still a bit shabby. I don't really know why that's happening. It's good in this area, not so good in that. I'm wondering if some residue from the release paper has actually got onto my cardstock. So I'm going to leave that there, and I'll do some experimenting to see why that isn't foiling well in that area. But that's my basic design. I'm going to do a separate video to show the messy crafting bit. I shall probably be doing sort of heavily into reds and purples with my background, but this is going to work with. Okay, I'll do that as a separate video, because apart from anything else I need to relocate to an area where I can make a real watery mess. So thank you for watching so far, and thank you for being patient with me while we figured this out, or not, and come back for the next part. Thanks for watching.